Hello everyone, intuitive and astrologer Lisa Salvatore here to talk to you today about Mars retrograde. Mars will station retrograde on December 6th and will remain retrograde through February until February 23rd. But we will be under this energy all the way through April, early May. In this video, we are going to go over what this means for us collectively and especially personally, as Mars is pure energy. It's ambition, it's drive, it's our vigor, it's our strength. It's also fighting, it's also conflict. So we're going to go over all of the functions of the planet Mars, how this can play out both collectively and especially on the personal levels by sign. So you're going to want to note your own personal Mars placement, as well as where Mars will be transiting for you throughout this time. For most people, Mars will be transiting through two different spaces of your birth chart because it begins in Leo and it ends in Cancer. Actually, it spends most of the retrograde portion through the sign of Cancer. And I'm going to go into details with this. I'm going to show you some slides. I know that a lot of you really appreciate the slides. You find it easier to follow along. So I've got some slides to show you, to share with you. If you're just interested in finding out what this means for you by your sign, just be sure to look at the description where the chapters are listed. It will show you the timestamps of where you can skip ahead. A few more things. You can always obtain your birth chart right on my website, lisasalvatore.com. You can just scroll down and click on free birth chart. You can note your placements there. You can also go to a website such as astro.com, which is free. And you can pull up your birth chart and your transits there as well and track them. It's just very helpful to follow along to how these energies can manifest, can play out for you, what you could be revisiting and revising, because that's what retrogrades are all about. Mars retrograde only happens once every 2 years, 24 to 26 months. The last time that Mars was retrograde was back in 2022, October 30th of 2022 through January of 2023, and that was through the sign of Gemini. And most of the introspection was around the way that we communicate, the way that we express ourselves, and then collectively speaking, there was a lot going on with Twitter in the Twitterverse. I'm just giving frame of reference for the last time that Mars was retrograde. For this particular Mars retrograde, Mars begins the retrograde in the sign of Leo, but spends most of the retrograde and finishes off the retrograde through the sign in the sign of Cancer. Leo and Cancer are two very different energies, but it's important to note that Leo is ruled by the sun and Cancer is ruled by the moon, the two luminaries. So on the personal level, this retrograde is going to be about a lot of inner work, a lot of inner psychological work, a lot centered around our self-confidence, our self-esteem, our image, our inner world, our emotional landscape and emotional hardwiring, family dynamics, very personal things can come up for you under this Mars retrograde cycle. A lot of inner work. It's a wonderful invitation to go inward and really sit with emotion, just to kind of really understand your trigger points more and what you might still need to work through, how you might need to assert yourself differently to get the results that you want, to get the results that you crave or the relationships that you crave. But there's also some messiness that can take place while Mars is retrograde. It's different than Mercury retrograde. Sure, Mercury retrograde can mess us up with communication, technology, always, travel, misunderstandings, miscommunications, mishaps, etc. And it's worth noting that we are in Mercury retrograde right now until December 15th. So Mars stations retrograde while Mercury's retrograde. So that could just make it a little bit extra messy. Like I said, for the December forecast, December is both messy and mesmerizing. If you have not listened to my December forecast, please go back and do so. It's right here on the channel. It's also linked in the description box below. But Mars retrograde is different because the function, the energy of the planets Mercury and Mars are very different. And since Mars is, again, our willpower, our drive, our ambition, our energy levels, our vitality, we may all collectively just be feeling more tired, more emotional, more ramped up. A few more noteworthy facts about Mars and Mars retrograde before we get to the slides is that Mars typically spends about 57 and a quarter days in each zodiac sign. Therefore, it takes Mars 2 full years to go around the zodiac through all 12 signs and orbit the sun. We will all also experience what we call the Mars return roughly every 2 to 2.5 years. That's when Mars comes back to the sign that it was at your birth. And this is typically not near your birthday. Mars governs over so many things, but the placement of your Mars in your birth chart is going to show who and what you are attracted to, how you go about achieving your goals, how you show up and how you take action, how you resolve conflict or just deal with conflict overall, the way that we fight, and also our physical energy levels. All of this is under Mars's domain. So Mars, the symbol for Mars is the circle of spirit, which is the shield, as Mars is the protector, the defender. It's how we protect ourselves and how we fight. So this is our shield. And then the arrow is the spear, the arrow of direction and action. This is how we take action. To the Romans, Mars was the god of war. And to the ancient Greeks, Mars was Aries, spelt Ares, because Mars is also the planetary ruler of Aries and of Scorpio. And I apologize because I might go all over the place with this video because there is so much to say about this planet, about all of the planets. And as I start going, there's other things that pop into my mind. You know, it is Mercury retrograde. I am a Gemini rising, so just bear with me because there's a lot that I want to say here. So Mars, as the protector, as the god of war to the Romans, he was the protector of the military, of military might. So Mars is very much associated with the military and with military action. Important to know throughout this transit. To the ancients, Mars was known as the red hot planet, i.e. the god of war, because they noted the reddish hue to the planet Mars. Colors associated with the planet Mars are obviously going to be red, orange, gold, even white, browns. That kind of represents the rusty color of the surface of the planet Mars. So if you wanted to pay homage to Mars, because I know that a lot of people genuinely connect to the planets or want to connect to them and understand them differently and more deeply about how they vibrate in our lives, I'm obviously one of those people. You can incorporate the colors of Mars. The day of the week that Mars also rules over is Tuesday. And obviously, you know, Mars is red, red hot. So Mars is also the color of blood. And Mars is very much associated with surgical procedures, surgical instruments. In medical astrology, it has a lot to do with blood, blood vessels, the head. Mars is also associated with impulsive action and or accidents, okay? So while we're under a Mars retrograde, just be a little bit more thoughtful, be a little bit more mindful about the way you're moving around in your everyday life, because the opportunity is there to be more emotional and then therefore to be more emotionally impulsive and or hasty and maybe carry out tasks without thinking as much as we normally would. So it's just worth repeating to take your time. While Mars is slow and moving backwards, you too take it slow, take it inward, use the time for self-reflection. Look for peace, not war, even though Mars is the god of war. December 6th, Mars will station retrograde officially at 6:33 p.m. Eastern Time, and this retrograde will begin at 6 degrees and 11 minutes of Leo. So you're going to want to note, where does 6 degrees of Leo fall in your birth chart? This is very important that you look at your birth chart for accuracy. Use the Placidus house system. It's going to be very accurate. And look for where 6 degrees of Leo falls in your chart, because this is where the Mars retrograde will start. I also have a free download that goes through the houses. It's a quick guide that goes through the houses of the birth chart that's linked in the description box below. Feel free to grab that. And then I also have a paid download that you can find right on my website under courses. That is a much deeper 3-part tutorial that goes much more into the signs, the energies of the planets, how you can track new moons and full moons in your birth chart, etc. But for all intents and purposes for this video, for this reading, you really don't need all of that unless you want it. But you will want to look to the part of your chart that contains 6 degrees of Leo, as this is where the retrograde will begin. This is the house or the areas of life, the departments of life where you will likely experience or feel this energy. And you've already likely been feeling it. Just to backtrack again for a moment, Mars entered the sign of Cancer back in September, on September 4th, in case you want to do a little bit of reflection to see what was going on for you around that time. Was anything coming up for you around your family life, your family dynamics, your inner world, your home, your environment, just your energy and emotion overall? And again, you may not be able to think of anything, and that's fine. But Mars entered Cancer on September 4th. When Mars enters Cancer, the focus is on our place in the world, our people, right? Because that's Cancer, our people, our family, what is ours. Those are the themes while Mars is in Cancer. And also while Mars is in Cancer, we tend to take action off of our emotion and off of our intuition. Mars is a little cranky in the sign of Cancer. Again, Cancer is ruled by the moon, which governs over our emotional body, our emotional world, our inner worlds. So we're taking the planet of energy and action and putting it in our inner worlds, and it's forcing us to shine a spotlight on what's really going on in there, what's really getting to us. So Mars was in Cancer from September 4th until November 3rd when Mars entered Leo. Now, Mars in Leo is a very different energy. Leo's fire. Leo's ruled by the sun. Leo is heat. It's royalty. It's pure energy and attention and focus. It's about where we shine. It's about our confidence, our self-image, our relationships. Leo's about love, the heart. So we get a little bit of a boost when Mars moves into Leo. So again, think back to around that time if you note anything significant by what you were feeling or what was going on in your reality. In higher vibration, when Mars is in Leo, it's all about determined action. It's very charismatic here, and when Mars is in Leo, collectively speaking, we all tend to engage more in that which we're really passionate about. And if you have Mars in Leo at birth, this is how your Martian energy would play out. There's a creativity and a confidence about Mars in Leo. In lower vibration with Mars in Leo, there can be a very strong sense of egotistical energy, too prideful, annoyingly obstinate, won't take no for an answer at any cost, overly confident. And we can tend to spin out or burn the candles at both ends while Mars is in Leo, or if you have Mars in Leo, I should say. So Mars moves all the way to 6 degrees of Leo, and then on December 6th, Mars will station retrograde there. So all of those areas that I just spoke about are going to be of a higher focus, but our energy levels can absolutely take a dip at this time. As I mentioned, to check your chart for where 6 degrees of Leo falls, you're also going to want to check your chart for where Cancer falls. Now, for everyone, this Mars retrograde is likely going to be between 2 different houses in your birth chart. So the hot spots for this particular retrograde are going to be anything that you have between 17 and 29 degrees of Cancer, and also Capricorn, Libra, and Aries are cardinal signs. If you have anything that falls under this umbrella, you're really going to be feeling that Mars retrograde energy that much more strongly. And also if you are Aries or Scorpio, because Mars is the planetary ruler of both Aries and Scorpio. So Aries sun, Aries rising, even Aries moon, also Scorpio, Scorpio sun, Scorpio moon, Scorpio rising especially. You will always feel the Mars retrogrades regardless of the sign. Now, some key dates throughout this retrograde. Mars has been in an operational opposition with Pluto since October. We're under this energy, this tension of Mars and Pluto. These two pure forces that are both vying for control, power struggles, power dynamics, all at the forefront. We're seeing this play out collectively. You're likely seeing this play out in your own life. We will have this exact opposition again on January 2nd at 1 degree of Leo, because Mars will still be in Leo at this point. Then Mars will recede back into Cancer on January 6th. And then Mars will move all the way back to 17 degrees of Cancer, and then will station direct on February 23rd, 9 p.m. Eastern. But we're not done with it yet, because then once Mars is direct, Mars and Pluto will oppose each other again April 25th and 26th, and then Mars will not clear its shadow until May 2nd or 3rd, depending upon where you are in the world, of 2025. We also have a full moon in Scorpio on May 12th. Mars is the ruler of Scorpio, as is Pluto. So you're going to want to reflect back at this point to the new moon in Scorpio that we had on November 1st, because you may have some major epiphanies or major Mars energy aha moments. Clarity might come in for you. So it's just worth tracking. Again, this transit will affect everyone, but Mars transits are always going to feel stronger for Scorpio and Aries, like I mentioned. And this is an important question that I receive often. So if you're born under a Mars retrograde, remember we only have one once every 2+ years, so it's less common than having Mercury retrograde at birth. And I will link the video in the description box below that I actually did about retrograde planets at birth, if you want to check that out. But if you have Mars retrograde at birth, you're definitely going to feel this. But I almost feel this as like a coming home for you if you're born under Mars retrograde, because it's an energy that your soul is used to. It's very karmic. I mean, astrology in general, our personal astrology, is all about karma, right? But if you're born under Mars retrograde, you are on a lifelong journey with this planet, with the energy of the planet of energy. So a strong karmic story really surrounds all of the Mars areas of life for you. So you're going to want to look into your chart to see where that lands. I will say, though, this is probably one of my favorite placements to work with, karmically speaking, because the individual that holds Mars retrograde in the birth chart is always going to struggle a little bit, or I should say have challenges surrounding the areas of their desires, their willpower, their assertion, their honesty, and in some cases their sexuality. Also their self-determination. There can be many obstacles regarding these areas on that path for the individual in this lifetime, which stems from some karma accumulated in the last lifetime. To take it one step further, if you have Mars retrograde in your birth chart, it's almost as if you're being specifically forced to deal with some situations to make up for some less than stellar behavior in the previous lifetime regarding the Mars areas. And that's not bad. We all have these kind of energies in our birth chart. So you will likely have a strong experience while Mars is retrograde. So pay really close attention to what comes up for you if you're Mars retrograde at birth. And I may come back and do a whole nother video on that because as I'm talking about it, there's so much juice there. But just know that you might find that the retrograde is very helpful for you, very eye-opening, even if it's a little bit challenging. Because again, it's like you're coming home to an energy that you're used to. And think of it like the rest of the collective is in on this too at the same time and probably dealing with it not as stealthily as you are because they're not used to it. We're not used to it. I don't have Mars retrograde at birth, so I can say that. We're not used to it where you are if you're Mars retrograde at birth. And let's not forget, especially those with birth dates that fall in these ranges, because you will be having a Mars-Sun transit. So if you're born any year, January 7th through the 26th, April 6th to the 26th, July 8th to the 29th, or October 10th to the 29th, you're going to be getting a Mars transit to your sun. So you're really going to want to prioritize your peace and your health because you will likely be very ramped up by the energy of this retrograde for better or worse. Self-reflection is the best way. Real quick, I know that I mentioned the energy of Mars in Leo, but as Mars will spend most of this retrograde cycle through the sign of Cancer, let's just quickly talk about the energy of Mars in Cancer. Mars in Cancer, this is where, as I mentioned, we act according to our mood. We act according to our intuition. So in higher vibration, it's thought out action based upon what we feel. It's not hasty. We will take action based off of our feelings, but it's typically more strategic action based off of our feelings. We're more cognizant of the repercussions of the expression of the energy. This is in higher vibration. Because with Mars in Cancer, we're much more hypersensitive to everyone and everything around us. We have to be very conscious of that because the potential is there to get really upset with the slightest provocation. We could feel much more irritable, much more easily rattled and irritated, especially by those closest to us, because that's Mars in Cancer. It's about what's closest to us, who's closest to us. Now, in lower vibration, Mars in Cancer can express itself as being overly passive and sometimes passive-aggressive, which leads to conflict. Mars in Cancer can also be verbally mean when poked at, very cranky, and when stressed can get very crabby, like their symbol. And while Mars is in Cancer, we can also lose steam due to our emotion. Real quick before we get to the signs, how about we go over some very practical and useful ways on how to deal with Mars retrograde energy. Remember, when Mars is retrograde, we are all much more accident prone, much more likely to slip up, literally. We are less coordinated. This is why you'll often hear astrologers say that they don't necessarily favor surgeries under Mars retrograde. Of course, that's not something that I can advise publicly because that's very personal. Sometimes we have to have surgery under specific planetary energies. We can't stop that. But because Mars speaks to instruments, coordination, it's also blood, it's also surgery, and it's retrograde at birth, this is why you'll often hear to avoid surgeries under Mars retrograde, or to try to, I should say, which we all obviously can't do. So don't panic if you have anything scheduled, okay? We all also have our own unique birth chart. While Mars is retrograde, it's really important to remember that there's also a lot of pent-up animosity and aggression that can come up and catch you off guard. And that can make you act even that much more impulsively. So I would just suggest that you try and take some precautions. Try to remain mindful of certain factors. Operating machinery and/or vehicles, be extra careful, especially with driving, because if it isn't you, it's about others on the road. You have to have eyes on all sides. Always is a good time, but especially during this retrograde. No texting and driving, full attention on the road in front of you, full attention on what you're doing, if you're cutting vegetables, whatever it is, because again, we're all more accident prone. When it comes to physical activity, because Mars is also physical activity, it's exercise, it's exertion, you don't want to overexert yourself. You don't want to push yourself past exhaustible limits. The new year begins while Mars is retrograde. That's the time where a lot of people tend to go harder at the gym. They do more vigorous workouts, they start new fasts, new cleanses, etc. Be a little bit more mindful around that while Mars is retrograde, because your body will likely not be feeling like such a fully tuned machine at this point. Fully oiled machine, I should say. So you don't want to overdo it. You don't want to come off of the holiday rush and decide that you need to lose 20 pounds by February 5th and you're killing yourself at the gym. Not the time to do that. Slow and steady wins the race. You're also going to want to minimize your time with those that normally ramp you up or irritate you, especially if you have to spend time with them, because in general, people are much more combative, much more likely to try to initiate conflict, to instigate, to poke at each other, to poke at others. And if you have to be around those that are typically angry or irritated, you're going to want to try to minimize your time with them as much as you can during this retrograde, because it's going to feel a lot less tolerable. And then obviously you want to try to not be one of those people. Watch your own emotions, watch your own reactions, watch your own trigger points. Like I always say, take a beat, take a minute, walk away, count backwards from 10 to 1, take deep breaths. This always helps me in situations where I'm about to pop off or lose it. And I never regret walking away and taking that 10 seconds. Throughout this transit, tap into the practice of responding and not reacting, meaning you take your time. Not everything deserves an immediate reply. Think things through. It's only going to help you. Especially refer back to the dates where Mars is in exact opposition to Pluto during this retrograde, January 1st and 2nd, even more specifically, because this heat will be felt that much more strongly. That's when Mars is retrograding back from Leo into Cancer. Emotions will be high. All of what I just said, all of the practical ways to deal with Mars retrograde, all of those trigger points are going to be exacerbated at this point. You're going to want to prioritize your sleep as best as you can. Get out into the sunshine, get out into nature. Take walks, and blow off steam in healthy ways. Find your healthy outlets to get out this energy, but just be careful not to overexert yourself. Now let's go through where this Mars transit will take place for you by sign. Remember that Mars is going to retrograde between 2 areas of your birth chart, so be sure to check your chart for accuracy. If you are Aries sun or Aries rising, remember that Mars is your planetary ruler, and so this retrograde will feel more impactful for you. It's taking place in your 5th house of creative pursuits, projects, creative endeavors, also your sexuality. It's the house of love. It's the house of fun. It's the house of pleasure and play. It's also the house that governs over children, either your own children or just children in your life in general. And in a lot of cases, it's your own inner child. How do you connect to him or her? How do you not? Do you allow yourself to feel joy in your life? Are you having enough joy? Are you having fun? What do you do during your downtime? What are your hobbies? These are likely all going to be cropping up for you under this retrograde cycle. So reflect on all of this. For Taurus, this retrograde takes place in your 4th house. This is going to feel very personal. This is going to feel very emotional, for better or worse. You may find yourself very nostalgic over family, both here and departed. You may seek out a lot of individuals or information regarding your ancestry and your lineage. You may reconnect with some family members that you haven't spoken to in a while, or in some cases, once Mars stations direct, you may actually sever some of those relationships. I would advise waiting, by the way, but you'll be reflecting on all of this under the retrograde. You don't have to do anything, but you'll be reflecting upon it. It can also just be a time of very deep emotional introspection because it falls in that 4th house, which is the house of Cancer. It's very personal. You could be really just reflecting upon your own emotional world, your own childhood, how it's shaped you into the person that you are today. Again, very personal. For Gemini, this is going to be in your 3rd house of communication, your expression. It's also about your connection to the people in your current reality, the people that you're the closest to and that you're spending time with, such as colleagues, the community that you're a part of. This is also the house that governs over our siblings and our cousins and those that could present as such to you, those that resonate in that vibration, even if it's not literal. It could be about your relationships with them and or your communication with them. You can find yourself really reflecting on how you speak your truth or how you do not. It's also a transit that could favor writing for you, verbal expression. For Cancer, this is going to obviously be very personal because the retrograde will be moving mostly through the sign of Cancer. And so this is going to be the 2nd house of your self-worth. Your finances are a biggie here, your value, and also your 1st house, which is the house of self. It's your physical body, it's your energy, your vitality. So take this time to really prioritize your priorities. How is your financial standing? How are you feeling about yourself? How's your body doing? What are you feeding it? Mind, body, spirit. A lot of reflection, very personal for you, Cancer. For Leo, this is going to be your 1st house, again, of self, vitality, energy, how you present out in the world, your creative expression, how you want people to receive you. What are you putting out into the world? This will also focus a lot on your private life, your behind the scenes life, your spiritual foundation, and your energy. So just like Cancer, prioritize your priorities. Prioritize your peace and your physical and mental well-being. And don't expect your energy levels to be consistent. For Virgo, this is going to be a very private energy for you, a very private process. You're probably going to be reflecting upon those that have departed, the afterlife in some cases, questioning your own belief systems. Some of you might find yourself really digging into the mental health of your family dynamics, your own mental health. Also, your physical health is a priority under this transit. You may contemplate seeking different forms of therapy. Whatever is going to feel constructive to help you when we come out of this retrograde, you're going to be that much more determined towards healing mind, body, spirit. Libra rising, this is going to occur in the 11th house areas of life for you, which is going to have a strong focus on your friendships, one or more friendships in your life, groups that you're a part of. These could be communities of any kind, online communities, something having to do with charity work, neighbors, those that you collaborate with or would like to collaborate with. There could be some conflict or conflict resolution in these areas of life for you. You're going to likely feel very activated here. And you're going to be really striving to maintain harmony and balance in one or more connections in your reality, in your life. And if you feel shortchanged in one or more relationships in your life, this is going to become very evident under this transit. You're not going to want to take it anymore. You're going to feel very frustrated. And if you watch all of the TikTok pop astrology, you'll see people saying about the cardinal signs being in their villain era. Yeah, well, for you, this is a time period while Mars is retrograde where I can safely say you are likely going to feel like you are in your villain era. So do know that you're going to be feeling much more charged up, much more moody. You're probably already experiencing this and have been since Mars entered Cancer back in September. You might have gotten a little bit of reprieve when Mars entered Leo in early November, but here we are. Now Mars is stationing retrograde, and you will really begin to feel the heat of this transit, I feel, early January. So pay attention to your trigger points. And if you already see this playing out for you, just take a step back, contemplate, and then recalibrate once this transit is over. Positively speaking, this is a really great time for you to go inward and focus more on what your vision is for yourself and for your future. And as I said that, a pencil just rolled off my desk, seemingly untouched and by itself, and hit the floor. So that is a sign for you to put your pen to the paper, to revise projects that need revising. This is a great time to get really serious and clear about your goals and your vision for the next decade, what you want that to look like. Because the 11th house is also your hopes and your dreams and your aspirations, what you hope to accomplish and achieve, what you believe you can achieve. So this Mars retrograde transit is a great use of the energy, especially the more frustrated you feel. Take it inward and focus on the future and what you wish to accomplish. And ask yourself if the relationships and or the communities and networks you're a part of, are these situations helping you to see that vision more clearly? Or are they actually blocking you from it in some capacity, whether intentionally or unintentionally? These are questions to ask yourself throughout this transit. Harmony will be restored as Mars begins to station direct. Scorpio, this retrograde can really focus on your public image, your reputation, your standing, your career. So I would definitely advise you to watch your behavior, watch the potential to do something that could have you under the eyes of superiors and not in the best way possible. Remember, Mars is your ruler. You're going to be more activated, agitated, irritated, especially if you feel slighted in the 10th house areas of life. So just watch out for that. And this could also be very positive for you. There could be a promotion in the works, but it's also possible that that gets backburnered. So don't expect everything to go so smoothly, but still there's a lot of positivity that could come up here. Sagittarius, if you are involved with any kind of writing project or planning a long distance trip or a retreat or anything of that nature, this is a great time to fine tune the details and to backtrack and to make sure that you have everything covered. If there's a course of study that you've wanted to embark upon, a certification or any classes, maybe going back to school, this is a great time to follow up and really think that through because this retrograde favors that for you. Capricorn, this retrograde can bring up a lot for you around joint finances, joint financial pursuits, anything that you're dealing with financially speaking with family. Wills, trusts, estates, things of that nature, conversations regarding these areas of life could crop up with parents, for example. Conversations about the more taboo and or morbid areas of life could be on the table. But this seems like there's necessary conversations, nothing negative, but just necessary. You might also find yourself really going over your own intimate relationships, your history, your sexual history in some cases, your intimate relationships and how they've shaped you into who you are today or how they've not. Your intimate relationships in general. You could be your own worst enemy under this transit, so just watch out for that. And like I mentioned to Virgo, alternate means of therapy could be on the table for you. New spiritual practices could all be very helpful. Aquarius, this is going to be all about your relationships and your relationship to your relationships. Also your relationship to self. Any kind of agreements that you are under right now, any contracts, any negotiations, I would advise you to take a step back and just really reassess everything, because the potential is here for a lot of backpedaling coming to you or at you from others. So take your time and know that under this Mars retrograde, I don't feel that all contracts will be final for you. And this includes marriages and divorces. So just take your time. Pisces. This retrograde is going to have a strong focus on your health of all levels, your spiritual health, your physical health especially, and your emotional health. You're going to not want to be skimping out on all of your practices. You're going to really want to try and find the balance between all facets of your health. You're going to be that much more dedicated to that. You definitely should be, because you're going to be more receptive to everything under this Mars transit, for better or worse. So focus on your energy clearing practices, on what you do to not absorb everything around you. Make sure you're prioritizing your own peace and health. There is your reading for Mars retrograde. I hope that that was helpful. I know that it is a lot of information, so just take what resonates and throw away what does not. And let me know if you're already feeling this retrograde energy or how you're experiencing it. Private sessions are open for January. You can find that linked right in the description box below on my website, lisasalvatore.com. You can sign up for my newsletter. I offer weekly live forecasts for the upcoming week, both astrological and intuitive. And there's also other live streams happening for my exclusive subscribers. So be sure to check that out. And I'll be back soon. Take care.